The art of the siege, whether on the offensive or the defensive, it brings certain challenges. Machiavelli would write about how fortifications created a false sense of security, and advocate that the ruler who can muster a good army has no need of them. From what we know of Celebrimbor and the status of Eregion, even if we've never received a full sense of scale and scope to this great elven kingdom, and while we can look to history and the teachings of Machiavelli or Sun Tzu, the creators have shown they are more interested in borrowing from Jackson's work at every turn rather than forging forward with their own vision. Considering the circumstances, and while this elven artisan of great craft has proven to date a complete nincompoop, precedent would suggest this pending engagement favours the side of defence. Working back, retrospectively or into the future, Saruman would fail in his besieging of King Theoden at Helm's Deep, suffering the complete destruction of his Uruk-hai army. Further, the Witch King of Angmar would also face defeat when besieging Minas Tirith. While it could be argued, given the mounting evidence that would suggest the creatives, a term I use loosely, don't care, can we expect to see such a deviation from Tolkien's compendium? I mean, and at this point, even if a unicorn were to appear that craps ice cream, that wouldn't surprise me. Keeping with Adar and the Besieger, if thinking upon Sun Tzu and his teachings through the art of war, he'd emphasize the pursuit of siege warfare as a last resort. Thinking upon the inhabitants of Eregion so far introduced, it might serve this Adar best, and in the interests of preserving his army, to employ the tactics of Bohemond at the 1098 Siege of Antioch. Adar might find his own Farouz to flip and present him access to this great elven city. Perhaps he might even conjure up his own Trojan horse, present it as a gift to this lot who look more likely to indulge in vanity. Also, what is it with Middle-earth battles and medieval siege warfare? It just seems the tried and true when it comes to representations of medieval engagements in Middle-earth, and unlike the Battle of the Southlands from Season 1, Payne and Mackay meet with considerable expectation if it be their desire to replicate, borrow from Jackson's Battle of Helm's Deep.
Pure ignorance, sheer stupidity, and wild recklessness.
The deception of Celebrimbor continues, and he informs Charlie, with a blonde wig, that the rings are nearly complete. It will be a sad occasion. I have so enjoyed our time together. Upon Charlie exiting the workshop, with the city on fire amid the barrage of the trebuchet, he proceeds to take charge.
Gather our finest troops. I'm taking command of our defences. Celebrimbor's mind is gone.
Wait, would that imply his mind was there to begin with? This Celebrimbor would better suit a place among the cast of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. The siege engines fall silent. Adar pivots to assault the mountainside to dam the river. Conveniently, and upon ignoring the implications of physics, just a minor detail, the trebuchet's range extends. A clean break in the mountain is achieved, and now the river's dammed. Surely the terrain, now reduced to the sludge of mud, will pose a considerable obstacle to moving forward with siege equipment. Fortunately, the mud proves little obstacle to the siege engines. Ambrose Everett Burnside, having to endure his multitude of errors through the infamous Mud March, calls this bullshit. The revolt continues down within the mines as the dwarves mutiny.
We stand with you.
Young Ned Stark meets with Prince Durin. He asks for his aid in confronting Adar and his horde. At last, Celebrimbor has broken free from this incantation. Leaving his workshop, Celebrimbor learns of Eregion besieged.
This is the thinnest part of the wall. We have to brace the foundations. Quickly now.
What an awkward-looking device. How is that remotely practical? While we're at it, what comprises Celebrimbor's forces in defence of Eregion? This defence has so far proven markedly meek. Where's the scalding oil, hot coals, any attempt to disrupt the siege engines beyond the flurry of arrow? It worked well for the defenders during the 1428 Siege of Orleans, including the timely sortie to harass the besiegers. What is the plan here? Is there a plan for the defence of this great elven city? Probably not. Celebrimbor appears to ramble, incoherent, and as one who's gone insane.
If you don't believe me, cut him open. Black as blood, black as pitch.
Charlie Boy exploits this weakness, and loyalties shift with little motivation to this new lord of Eregion, donning a blonde wig.
Get your hands off me.
With a flick of Charlie's wrist, Murdania falls, and is then brutally finished off by an orc. I honestly didn't see that coming. Not in that fashion. Point goes to Payne and Mackay.
All this can end
Finish the 9 and I'll spare your city.
Adar's army turns to confront the pending relief from the elves of Lindon, their numbers appearing significant as the cavalry surge forward, led by young Ned Stark, the token Asian elf, and Old Gilly here. But upon the unveiling of their captive Alicia, our namesake Galadriel, the elves manage to rein in their pending charge. A bartering begins between young Ned Stark and Adar.
The rings for Galadriel's life. What is it to be? It is an earnest offer. I suggest you take it and leave Sauron to me.
Question.
Why does Adar need the ring? How does it help him?
Question.
Doesn't young Ned Stark and Adar share a common objective in bringing forth Sauron's destruction? Why not pursue a temporary alliance?
Question.
While Alicia might be an important elf, and to young Ned Stark personally, does the plight of Eregion still besieged pale in comparison?
The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few.
Question.
Does the siege continue in the background? Has time just stopped?
Question.
How important is Alicia to young Ned Stark? Is this merely a ruse, or is this simply intended to present a middle finger to those that love the lore? With it confirmed that the enemy outnumber him 10-1, young Ned Stark instructs his subordinate to ride with haste for Khazad-dûm, and to lead Prince Durin against Adar's flank. But Prince Durin has a problem, as he must choose between the pending civil war or to rush in support of the besieged Eregion. Schlock with a horse kicking an orc ensues, and the cavalry, heading for the walls of Eregion, dives face first into the mud, including the cavalry assault through what appears to be a forest, certainly a denser terrain than desirable on horseback. I cannot see Marshal Murat being complimentary of this ill-advised tactic. Lamenting the death of his horse, young Ned Stark unloads a trebuchet, flinging an orc against the Eregion walls.
I suppose you think that was terribly clever.
Providing the benefit of the doubt, they don't deserve it. That the siege continued amid the discussion over exchange. At last, this stupid and impractical siege device does the job. Now, if there were a Saladin leading the defenders, and if claiming inspiration from the 1189 Siege of Acre, Celebrimbor, Charlie, and the Guard could make it tough going for the attackers, and through coordinated counteroffensives. Who am I kidding? This is a farce. With no clear objectives, nor anyone at the helm, stuff just happens because the plot demands it. This cinematic battle is nothing more than a generic and erratic hodgepodge. Why I refer to the numerous historical siege engagements is to highlight the many sources available to draw upon for inspiration, but typically the creators rely upon recent cinematic efforts without taking any creative deviation. A giant troll seeking to breach the wall reminds of a Game of Thrones. The clumsy use of explosions, including the convenient respite afforded the Asian elf to again aim and unleash. Well, when compared to this... Need I say anything further? To the predictable arrival of reinforcements, even if not in this episode, of the dwarves like Éomer and Gandalf arriving at Helm's Deep, Aragorn and the Dunharrow at Pelennor Fields. While imitation may be the sincerest form of flattery, everything here repeated appears worse, proves nonsensical, incoherent, and ultimately pointless.
Lord Father, the war is stronger than we thought. Many Uruk are dying. Shall we sound the retreat?
Can someone shut this stupid orc up? He's quickly becoming an annoying sub-character who reminds of Alfred Lickspittle or even Jar Jar Binks.
Very, very bad.
What is Adar supposed to do here? He's already sacrificed so much of his forces. If he were to retreat now, all would have been in vain. This is an obvious setting up for resentment and an inevitable betrayal, but it's stupid within this context and makes this orc even more ridiculous. If he's somehow Adar's lieutenant, what does this say for the rest of the Horde? This series has only managed to further diminish the orcs, to reduce them into something dumber than stormtroopers and walkers. Speaking of walkers, how does a fair, blonde, poorly disguised, tallish, miscast elf manage to evade so many orcs in such a fashion? At least in The Walking Dead, there was more effort taken to disguise and blend in from the survivors. Heck, even with the return of the king, it was much more convincing. Again, nothing original, remotely clever, and horribly lazy. As an aside, Arindir has become completely pointless. There's just nothing more for this character to do. With the death of Bronwyn, he's essentially become utterly irrelevant to the plot. More or less a MacGuffin to save Isildur and now Alicia. Celebrimbor cuts himself free and seeks to flee with the 9 rings.
Release him. That is Lord Celebrimbor, greatest of elven smiths.
9 rings. To enslave the world of men as he enslaved me. I blinded myself to what he was.
So did I.
Acknowledgement of fault, certainly from the stubborn Alicia, is somewhat appreciated. Still, I don't buy any of this deception. The delivery of this narrative is only achieved to further diminish the character of Sauron as this great deceiver. Celebrimbor attempts to have him arrested, but Charlie calls upon the dark side of the Force and becomes a Sith Lord.
Find your lack of faith disturbing.
Appropriate, since the Sauron interpretation certainly reminds of Anakin Skywalker from the prequels. Lastly, and to pluck the pen from Rian Johnson, there is a subversion of expectation. With no reinforcements from Prince Durin coming, the severely outnumbered elves suffer defeat. Bonus points also go to Adar for the timely committing of his reserves. Arindir is presumably mortally wounded, left to die, so I can only assume he'll survive and be back for the finale. Young Ned Stark is forced to yield. This is an erratic, incomprehensible, and patently absurd mess from start to finish. It might be a better episode, simply because of stuff happening for a change, but given the hype machine for the sacking of Eregion, and with this being the series' biggest and bloodiest battle yet, it only lands with yet another whimper. Only one more to go. How much worse can this get?